The stars shimmered like cold lanterns in the blackness, scattered across an expanse too vast for any one mind to fully comprehend. Captain Alara Vance stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, hands clasped behind her back, her gaze fixed on the growing silhouette ahead. What at first registered as an energy anomaly now revealed itself as something entirely different. A ship larger than any vessel built by human hands, its surface a mosaic of shifting alloys that seemed to ripple as though alive. Even at this distance, it radiated a quiet menace. Alara had been in the void for nearly 2 decades, ever since Earth's exploratory program opened the gates to faster-than-light travel. She knew the sensation of discovery, the thrill of brushing up against the unknown, but this felt heavier, like stepping across a line that was not meant to be crossed. She kept her face impassive, though the murmurs among her crew betrayed their unease. Dr. Marcus Hale hovered near the observation console, his eyes alight with the wonder of a child. Tall, thin, and more comfortable in libraries than on a military vessel, Marcus carried himself with the distracted air of a man perpetually buried in thought. Yet in that moment, his voice carried a steady conviction. "It's them," he whispered. "An intelligence older than us, perhaps older than our species itself. Look at the symmetry, the patterns in its hull. It's a design philosophy beyond anything human." Alara glanced at him. "It's also blocking our path." She had no patience for idle reverence. The Dauntless and its fleet had been tasked with charting potential colony worlds. Every system mattered. Resources were tight, politics on Earth more volatile than ever, and her mission was more than discovery. It was survival. A planet rich in rare elements hung in the system's 3rd orbit, gleaming in the star's golden light. That world had been marked as humanity's next frontier, and now this alien presence stood between them and it. Communication attempts were answered at last. The alien transmission was strange, not merely in sound but in sensation. The words arrived in the mind as much as the ear, each syllable carrying weight beyond its sound. A figure appeared on a holographic display. Tall and imposing, scale plate of armor fused seamlessly into flesh. Its eyes, black pools reflecting no light, studied Alara's bridge crew as though measuring each soul. "I am Commander Xyrith of the Xyrith Dominion," the alien declared, voice resonant and sharp. "You approach a sacred world. It is not yours to touch." Alara straightened, her tone formal but unyielding. "We are explorers. Commander, the planet is uninhabited. By what right do you claim it?" Xyrith's lips curled in something like disdain. "By the right of ages. Our people walked among these stars when you were still cowered in caves. Every stone, every orbit, every silence here remembers us. You are trespassers." The bridge went silent. Marcus stepped forward, lowering his voice as if gentleness might soften alien suspicion. "Perhaps there is room for dialogue. History need not be ownership. Cultures can coexist." Xyrith's gaze sharpened. "Coexistence requires equality. You are not our equals." Alara cut Marcus off with a glance. She respected his optimism, even envied it at times, but she knew better than to show weakness before a predator. "With respect, Commander, survival does not wait for permission. Humanity will endure, whether here or elsewhere. But this world, we need it, and we will not turn away simply because your ancestors looked upon it once." Xyrith's form leaned closer to projection, his voice dropping to a near growl. "Reckless, just as we judged. You reach with grasping hands, blind to consequence. Perhaps it is not negotiation we must prepare for, but a lesson." The transmission ended, leaving only the quiet hum of machinery. For a moment, the stars outside seemed to press closer as though listening. Marcus exhaled, his expression troubled. "We can't afford open conflict. If they are as ancient as they claim, their technology will eclipse ours 100-fold. "And yet," Alara replied, "we cannot afford to yield either. The Council sent us here for a reason. That planet is lifeblood. If the Xyrith mean to test us, then we'll show them what humanity is made of." The words rang firm, but when Alara turned away, her jaw tightened. She was no fool. If war came, humanity's fledgling fleets would strain under the weight of it. Still, she had seen her people rise from disasters before, clawing hope out of rubble. Humans were adaptable in ways others found irrational, even dangerous. Where others saw walls, humans found doors. The night cycle dimmed the bridge lights, and still Alara remained at her station, staring at the alien vessel suspended against the void. Marcus eventually drifted back to his quarters, lost in translations of the cryptic Xyrith words. The crew whispered in corners, tension rising like static before a storm. Beyond the viewport, the disputed world turned slowly, clouds swirling over continents rich with promise. It was beautiful, fragile, waiting to be claimed. Alara could not help but think of Earth, blue and battered, where humanity had nearly destroyed itself before finding unity in the stars. They had earned the right to reach further, to risk more. No ancient claim could erase that. When the next message came, it was not a transmission, but a maneuver. The Xyrith vessel shifted, placing itself directly between the fleet and the planet, its silhouette blotting out half the sun. A warning, silent yet deafening. Alara drew a breath, steady and deliberate. The conflict had not yet begun, but its shape was clear. Neither side would retreat, and somewhere in the tension between survival and pride, the first sparks of war had already been struck. She gave the order for her ships to hold position, eyes never leaving the alien behemoth. "Let them test us," she murmured, too softly for anyone else to hear. "They'll learn what it means to stand against humanity." The stars kept their silence, and the void stretched endlessly ahead, waiting to see what would be written there. Sparkles, 995 words. "Would you like me to continue with Section 2 in the same style, 1,700 words, or would you prefer me to compress the next section into 1,000 words as well for tighter pacing?" The Xyrith blockade held for 3 tense days, the Leviathan ship maintaining silent vigil above the contested planet. On the Dauntless, the air was charged with anticipation. Every crew member carrying themselves as though a single mistake might trigger catastrophe. Captain Alara Vance hid her own tension beneath an iron composure, pacing the bridge while her officers monitored the alien vessel. The crew needed to see unflinching command, not the weight pressing at the corners of her resolve. Dr. Marcus Hale spent those days buried in fragments of intercepted communication, replaying Koretha's words again and again. He was certain their arrogance masked something deeper. "They don't speak of territory as possession," he told Alara during one strategy meeting. "They speak of memory. To them, this world isn't soil and resource, it's continuity. If we keep framing it as property, we'll never bridge the gap." "Then perhaps we shouldn't waste time bridging it," Alara answered, her voice hard. "Every hour we linger here is another hour the Council grows restless. We need that planet. Our colonies need that planet. Philosophy won't keep families alive." Marcus's shoulders sagged, but he didn't retreat. "And war might destroy the very hope you mean to secure. We're untested against them. Alara, they could wipe us out in a day." Her eyes lingered on him, softer for just a breath. "And yet we've stood against impossible odds before. If they mean to push us, Marcus, then we'll endure." The stalemate ended abruptly. On the 4th cycle, a Xyrith raiding craft broke from the main vessel and descended toward the planet. Alara reacted instantly, dispatching 2 frigates in pursuit. What began as a cautious intercept spiraled into the first clash of fire. Human ships darted like minnows around the alien craft, unleashing bursts of plasma and missiles that barely scorched its armor. In return, the Xyrith weapons carved through one frigate's hull, tearing it open with clinical precision. On the Dauntless, alarms blared and damage reports filled the air. Alara ordered tactical repositioning, her voice calm even as grief struck the crew like a blow. She knew the names of every officer aboard the destroyed vessel, knew their faces and histories. There was no time to mourn. The surviving frigate executed an improvised maneuver, dragging debris into the alien ship's path before releasing its engines at full burn. The blast didn't cripple the raider, but it staggered it, forcing retreat. The bridge fell silent once the smoke cleared. Victory was too costly to celebrate, too precarious to trust. Marcus studied the tactical display, then looked at Alara, his expression unreadable. "You see what I mean," he said. "We fight like this, and we bleed ourselves dry." Alara did not deny the truth. Yet even Marcus had seen it. Though weaker, humans were unpredictable. The frigate's desperate trick was something the Xyrith had not anticipated. To Alara, that spark of ingenuity was not weakness, but humanity's greatest weapon. The countermeasure didn't go unnoticed. Later that cycle, Xyrith appeared once more on the projection. His dark gaze lingered on Alara as though she were a puzzle he could not solve. One ship thrown against certain death, he said slowly. And yet, it nearly broke the lesson we offered. Do your kind so cherish futility? Alara met his gaze with steel. We cherish survival. We fight when others would surrender. That's why we're still here. For a moment, Xyrith seemed almost contemplative, though the disdain never left his voice. Perhaps you are not merely reckless. Perhaps you are dangerous in a way even you do not understand. The projection dissolved, leaving his words like a shadow across the bridge. In the following days, skirmishes flared along the system's edges. The Xyrith tested the humans with surgical strikes, measuring their responses. Every battle cost lives, but in each, the humans adapted, innovated, twisted disadvantage in some sliver of survival. One crew reconfigured mining drones into decoys, buying precious minutes. Another jury-rigged a damaged engine into an improvised bomb, crippling a pursuing craft. None of these gambits won decisive victories, but they unsettled the Xyrith, who were accustomed to enemies that broke under pressure, not ones who turned pressure into fuel. Marcus began to see the shape of it, too. One evening in the dim light of the observation deck, he told Alara, "What unnerves them isn't our weapons. It's our refusal to accept the limits they assume. To them, risk is weakness. To us, it's survival." She nodded, though fatigue lined her face. "Then let's make sure they never mistake us for easy prey." The breaking point came with another attempt by the Xyrith to seize orbital control. This time, the Dauntless itself was targeted. Xyrith's raiders swarmed in coordinated precision, their assault overwhelming. Systems faltered, hull plating buckled, and for a moment it seemed humanity's first fleet might be extinguished before history had even recorded its deeds. But desperation lit the human crew like fire. Engineers rerouted failing power through secondary conduits. Tacticians turned retreat into feint, and Alara herself ordered a maneuver so audacious it bordered on madness, slingshotting the wounded ship around the planet's atmosphere to draw the Xyrith into disadvantageous orbit. The maneuver burned engines nearly to failure, caused dozens of lives and structural breaches, and left the Dauntless barely clinging to function. Yet when the smoke cleared, the Xyrith had been forced back, their formation scattered. Alara stood on a ruined bridge, sweat streaking her temples, her uniform torn from flying shrapnel. Around her, crew worked with bruised determination, patching, recalibrating, refusing despair. Across the display, Xyrith's vessel retreated into the darkness, not destroyed but disrupted. The captain drew in a long breath and allowed herself one moment of stillness. They had survived the impossible again, but survival was not victory. She knew the Xyrith would not accept humiliation lightly. The real test was yet to come, and somewhere in that retreat, Alara suspected, Xyrith himself was beginning to question whether humanity was truly the reckless child he claimed, or something far more dangerous to the Order of the Stars. Sparkle's 998 words. Would you like me to carry Section 3 forward in the same 1,000-word style, or should I expand it closer to planned 1,700-word depth for a more drawn-out climax and resolution? The wreckage of battle still drifted in the void, fragments of human ships mingling with shards of alien alloy, silent witnesses to the ferocity that had already scarred the contested system. Captain Alara Van surveyed the damage reports from what remained of her fleet, her face unreadable though her heart bore the weight of each loss. Humanity's first confrontation with the Xyrith had proven costly, yet the mere fact they had not been annihilated was a victory in itself. Still, she knew the reprieve would not last. The Dominion would return, stronger, and this time they would not underestimate human defiance. Dr. Marcus Hale stood beside her at the observation window, his expression grim, but alight with thought. They'll strike soon. Xyrith won't allow a defeat, even a minor one, to linger. But Alara, he's curious. You saw it. He doubts. That doubt might be our only chance. She studied him. appreciating his insight even as she questioned its utility. Doubt doesn't stop plasma fire, Marcus. They'll come with everything they have, and we'll have to face it, whether or not they're curious. Across the gulf of space, the Xyrith fleet gathered, no longer a solitary giant but a phalanx of warships, sliding into formation. Xyrith's voice soon followed, cutting through the human comms with a finality that chilled even the most hardened officers. This defiance ends now. You have clawed at survival, but the Dominion does not yield. Prepare yourselves. Ilera ordered her ships into battle readiness. Every officer, every engineer, every pilot knew the odds, yet none faltered. Humanity's strength was never in numbers or firepower. It was in spirit, in the stubborn refusal to surrender even when reason demanded it. On the bridge, silence fell as the two fleets closed the distance, a breathless pause before the storm. The battle erupted in a cascade of fire and motion. Alien warships advanced with mechanical precision, their beams carving arcs of destruction across the human line. Human vessels answered with desperate creativity. Weaponizing asteroids pulled into erratic trajectories, turning cargo bays into improvised missile silos, and weaving through the chaos with maneuvers so reckless they bordered on suicidal. Ilera directed from a bridge, every command precise, every risk calculated to squeeze possibility from the jaws of impossibility. The Dauntless, though battered, became the spearhead of resistance, drawing the Xyrith into tighter engagement where their size became a hindrance. Amid the chaos, Marcus's voice broke through with sudden urgency. He had been monitoring intercepted signals, and now his tone carried revelation. Ilera, listen, their command network, rigid, centralized. If we fracture it, even briefly, their coordination will collapse. They're strong because they move as one, but that also makes them fragile. Her eyes narrowed. It was a gamble, but one worth seizing. She ordered the fleet to concentrate fire on the flagship, Xyrith's vessel itself. The decision was dangerous. Every ship would have to expose itself. Every crew risked annihilation. Yet as the human line shifted and converged, a pattern emerged. Fragile ships protecting one another, improvising in ways no Dominion commander could predict. Xyrith watched from his throne-like command seat, expecting chaos to unravel the humans. But instead, he saw the opposite: resilience. Each sacrifice was met with another surge of resolve. Each loss hardened their will. For the first time in centuries, Xyrith felt uncertainty gnawing at him. Was this what made the young species so perilous? Their refusal to break, their ability to turn desperation into strength? The humans' barrage struck true. Shields flickered around the flagship, not destroyed, but faltering long enough for the Dominion formation to stumble. Coordination fractured, and in that moment the battlefield shifted. Human vessels, scarred and failing, pushed with everything they had, carving a path where no path existed. On the Dauntless, alarm screamed, console sparked, and still Ilera stood tall, her voice carrying through the chaos. Hold the line. Push them back. Show them who we are. The final clash left both sides bloodied. The Dominion ships withdrew at last, not in complete defeat, but in recognition that victory here would demand more than they were prepared to spend. Xyrith's vessel lingered, battered yet imposing, until his visage returned to Ilera's bridge one last time. "You are reckless beyond reason," he said, his voice tinged now with something other than scorn. "And yet, there is strength in your madness. Perhaps it is not extinction that waits for your kind, but upheaval. You are not like those we have crushed before." Ilera met his stare, her words steady. "We don't fear change, Commander. We become it. That's why we'll endure long after fear has consumed you." For a moment, Xyrith was silent. Then, with the faintest nod, a gesture neither concession nor threat, his image dissolved, and the Xyrith ships retreated into the abyss. The battlefield quieted, leaving behind wreckage, silence, and the fragile persistence of survival. The humans had not won a war, but they had claimed something greater: acknowledgement. They were no longer invisible, no longer dismissed. They had been seen, measured, and found to be something new, something dangerous, something impossible to ignore. On the battered bridge of the Dauntless, Ilera allowed herself a single breath of relief. Around her, weary crew patched systems, comforted the wounded, and prepared for the long journey ahead. Marcus sat beside her, his eyes reflecting both grief and quiet triumph. "They'll be back," he said softly. "Yes," Elara answered. "But next time, they won't see us as children. Next time, they'll know humanity stands ready." Beyond the viewport, the disputed planet turned slowly, still waiting to be claimed, a reminder of what had been risked and what was yet to come. For humanity, the stars were no longer silent. They were watching, and they would never look at humans the same way again. Sparkle's 998 words. Would you like me to now stitch all 3 sections into a single continuous story around 3,000 words so you can see how it flows as one narrative? The silence after the battle felt heavier than the clash itself, as though the void were holding its breath to see what humanity would do next. The wreckage of human and Xyrith ships still drifted in quiet orbits, steel and bone mingling in a graveyard of ambition. Captain Elara Vance stood on the dauntless bridge, her posture unyielding even as exhaustion carved shadows beneath her eyes. Survival had been won, but it was not triumph. Every soul aboard understood the truth. This was merely the opening act of a larger struggle. Dr. Marcus Hale lingered at her side, his gaze drawn to the stars beyond the viewport. His voice was low, almost reverent. "We've entered their histories now, Elara. Whatever the Xyrith write of us from this point forward, we'll never again be strangers in the dark." Elara's reply was clipped, as though she couldn't allow herself the luxury of wonder. "Histories don't feed colonies. They don't protect Earth. They'll be back, Marcus. And when they come, it won't be to test us. It'll be to crush us." The truth of it gnawed at her. Humanity had proven they could resist, even scar Dominion fleet. But resistance was not victory, and Earth-scattered colonies were vulnerable. Their fledgling unity could fracture if fear outweighed hope. She knew this conflict was no longer about a single world. It was about whether humanity would claim a place among the stars or be hunted back into silence. The Council's response arrived hours later, transmitted across the light years with the sharp edge of political urgency. Elara was summoned not home, but forward, to a newly assembled coalition of human leaders orbiting Mars. The message carried both gratitude and demand. She would stand as humanity's representative, not only as a captain, but as the face of Defiance. She allowed herself no protest, though inside she recoiled. Elara was a soldier, not a politician. She had commanded crews, not councils. Yet she understood why they had chosen her. Images of the Dauntless weaving through Xyrith fire had already spread across colonies like wildfire. To billions of frightened citizens, she was not just a captain. She was proof that humanity could look into the abyss and not flinch. Marcus, overhearing the directive, offered a quiet smile. "They'll listen to you, Elara, not because of your words, but because you've bled for them. That kind of truth speaks louder than speeches." She almost envied his faith. The days that followed were a blur of repair and preparation. Engineers patched the Dauntless with scavenged alloy. Soldiers buried comrades in the void, and messages of defiance surged from colonies eager to prove themselves. Elara watched her crew work through fatigue and grief, refusing surrender, and she realized the heart of their struggle was not in weapons or strategies, but in the will that refused to be extinguished. When the fleet finally limped into Mars' orbit, the sight of the Council station made her chest tighten. Dozens of vessels, some military, some civilian, clustered like fragile birds seeking shelter. Inside, the Council chamber pulsed with urgency. Governors, admirals, scientists, all speaking at once, all fearful. They debated retreat, negotiation, war, and extinction, their words colliding like storms. Elara stood before them, silent until the noise ebbed. She carried no ornate uniform, no practiced gestures, only the scars of battle still etched on her presence. When she spoke, her voice carried the gravity of experience rather than rhetoric. "The Xyrith will not stop because we ask them to. They will not yield because we offer them tribute. They see us as reckless children. We must show them that children grow." The chamber quieted. Her words did not promise easy victory. They promised survival through struggle. Some leaders frowned, fearful of escalation, but others leaned forward, hungry for the defiance they heard. Marcus, watching from the side, caught her eye and nodded, his quiet reminder that truth was enough. Yet not all were convinced. Whispers of surrender wound through the chamber. One governor declared, "If war is inevitable, then we risk extinction before we've even begun. Perhaps submission buys us time to endure." Illyra's temper flared, but she mastered it, answering with measured steel. Submission does not buy time. It spends it, and when it is gone, nothing remains but regret. We survive not by bending, but by standing. The Xyrith believe their age grants them dominion. Let us prove that youth grants us fire. The word struck like a spark. Some still wavered, but the tide had shifted. Humanity's leaders, fractured and fearful, found in her a compass pointing not to safety but to resolve. They voted not for surrender, but for preparation, for unity, for war if war must come. That night, in the quiet of her quarters, Illyra allowed herself one moment of stillness. Marcus joined her, his expression thoughtful. "You've lit a fire that won't easily be put out. They'll follow you now." She looked out at the planet below, its red sands shimmering in the distance. "Then I'll make sure it leads them forward, not into the ashes." But even as she spoke, she knew Xyrith was somewhere among the stars, watching, waiting, measuring humanity not by speeches or counsels, but by what came next. The Xyrith had retreated, but not surrendered. Their silence was not defeat. It was preparation. Illyra tightened her fists at her sides, the weight of leadership pressing heavier than any battle. Humanity had survived the first clash, had found its voice in defiance. Yet the war to come would demand more than resolve. It would demand sacrifice beyond anything they had known. She straightened, her eyes hardening with determination. If the Dominion meant to test humanity again, they would find them not as children, nor even as equals, but as rivals destined to shape the stars themselves. The void outside remained vast and silent, but Illyra no longer felt indifferent. Somewhere out there, the future waited, and humanity was ready to seize it. Sparkles, 995 words. Do you want to continue expanding into more sections beyond 4, building this into a long-form serialized HFY saga, or should I stitch sections 1 to 4 into a single unified narrative now?